Howdy everyone. So, game jams. You know what they are, I do too, so I'm not going to bother with an introduction where I read a Wikipedia article and pass it off as being well researched, because today I want to chronicle my own experience with a recent game jam in hopes that maybe you could take something from it. So, here's that. God, I'm bad with transitions. So our story begins all the way back in the ancient primordial times of March of this year. A close friend of mine messages me a link. A toxic Yuri visual novel game jam being hosted by Kyo System, Kill Jill, Dead Death, Thursday Rain, and Nadia Nova. This immediately hit me like a train because I've actually been a fan of Nadia Nova's for a while. She actually ended up being the first thing on my bookmark bar by just being one of the first things I saved when I got my current PC. So to say I was interested was a little bit of an understatement. Having the chance to compete and get my work judged by cool queer artists was a super exciting opportunity, so I immediately signed up. But I knew I wasn't going to be able to get it all done by myself. So I reached out to my friend Valentine to assist me with 2D art. They're an incredibly offline person, so unfortunately I can't link you any of their stuff. When I presented them the game jam and everything I wanted to do, they were immediately on board, and so we had our team. Valentine on 2D art and me on 3D art, writing, programming, everything else. With a couple of months till the competition, we waited patiently and did nothing. Is what I wish I could say, but we did a little planning. I know, I'm a cheater, sue me, I'm breaking the rules, I planned ahead, but we couldn't help it, we were just too excited. Before I continue, I think it's important to read what the rules were. So, here. The rules were these. They wanted something gay, they wanted something toxic, they wanted stories about girl things, graphic and sexual themes were permitted, to be avoiding harmful stereotypes, they didn't want the stories to promote any form of bigotry, and then more technical rules like using Ren'Py, all the members of the team having to be adults, blah 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 blah. Also, no use of generative AI, which is how you know this is a good game jam. All of these rules combined with a cool $500 reward. Well, $501. Apparently Nadia Nova found $5 at some point and upped the prize pool to $501 for 5 winners chosen by the judges. And beyond all of that was the unannounced theme. Yeah, the novel had to follow some yet-to-be-announced theme. So with all of this in mind, we prepared a loose outline for the project. It would be a visual novel about a pre-transition trans woman falling in love with her teacher over an MMO. I took loose inspiration from a couple of stories I liked, and from there I just wanted to follow where my ideas kind of led. The in-game segments would be 3D and would be made by me, and the in-real-life segments would be done by Valentine's art and a mix of real-life photographs for the background. This also worked with the impending theme, since no matter what was revealed, I would just retroactively make the MMO match that theme. So like, if the theme was moon, I could make it a space exploring MMO. If the theme was dragons, I would have made it a dragon MMO, so on and so forth. A loose and open enough idea that I could kind of change it to match whatever I needed. My main drives for this project were purely inspired by the rules for the jam. I liked the idea of girl things, and wanted to explore that weird point where I had the most dysphoria in my life in a concise story that would be able to cover multiple points on the pre-transition timeline. I also wanted to make a story about being a closeted trans lesbian, since I think that viewpoint is a lot less explored in the world of trans contemporary literature, but that's just my thought. I also really like this idea here, girls who make each other worse. I think a lot of what my game explores is how societal expectations and social structures cause interference in the lives of queer women, and how, no matter how hard you try, in a queer relationship, you will always be devalued as a woman in the view of the world. You will always be making each other worse. I also wanted to portray a relationship you could 1000% see why the two people are in, but also have the understanding of like, oh yeah, they'll probably break up at some point. To this point, I decided to change the teacher to a TA, since I felt that was a little more uncomfortably real to me. I thought that was a lot more close to the ground, something you could believably hear from somebody and be like, yeah, that's a thing that happened. I also really liked how role-playing, online identity, and gender expression all had this thematic stickiness to them that really allowed me to form something interesting. I think that's all I'll really say about what's going on story-wise with my games, since, I'd like you to play it. Also, I'm afraid of telling you how to interpret my work. So go ahead and play it, and leave in the comments what you thought it was about. I'd be interested in hearing your opinions. I thought it was pretty good. Now, on to the more technical side of the project. The judges said they'd prefer the project be done in RenPy, so that was the engine I decided on. Now, have I ever coded in Python before? Yeah, like 10 years ago back in high school. But it's fine. Isn't RenPy like the easy baby engine? I'll just learn it as I go when the project actually starts. Beyond that, I decided that any other assets I needed, I would get from public domain sources. With all that out of the way, I was prepared to hit the ground running when the game jam began. March 31st hit, and it was officially time to begin development. The theme was revealed, and it was Toxic Yuri. They were just making sure nobody cheated. You know what? Fair enough, I fell for it. The plan was simple. Finish the script as quickly as I could, then have Valentine prepare the art, and finally code and finish the project. Now, looking back, this was a dog shit plan. I really should have been coding ASAP. My fucking humorous dumbass really thought, well, it can't be that hard, so I naturally put it off like a fool. Do not do this. Anyway, after about 2 weeks, I had finished the first draft of the script and handed off to Valentine to make the 2D sprites. This was way longer than I thought it was going to take and kind of pushed a lot of things back. But while Valentine worked on 2D art, this gave me time to work on the 3D models. So I got to work, and soon they were done. By the way, if you want to have these models for yourself, I'm giving a download to both of them over on my Patreon, so go support me there, maybe. I'd like that. Finishing modeling these two made me realize I had greatly overestimated my own ability. I originally planned the game to open with a 3D animated opening sequence, but seeing how long it took me to even make the 3D models and the one storyboard I had, I immediately scrapped that idea. Which probably was for the best. It was not getting done. It's as Miyamoto said, a delayed game never comes out, but a rushed game is good. Or some shit like that, I don't know. On top of scrapping the opening cutscene, I also had to cut a lot of backgrounds I was originally interested in making, but a lot had to be cut, I'm gonna be honest. Also, around this time, I had settled on the game's final name. Her age, my sex, your location. A reference to the game being written in first, second, and third person, along with reflecting a lot of the thematic ideas from the work, with the cherry on top being its wordplay on the classic chat room shorthand of ASL. After that, Valentine got their art to me. Now, it's also important to note that the original plan was to have Valentine also make CGs for the game. But by the time they got the sprites to me, it was already far too late for me to wait for any other part of this game. Which, speaking of actually programming the game, that's all that's left. I just need to learn RenPy, remember how the fuck Python worked, and make an entire game. Easy peasy. Now, how long did I leave myself to do all that? Oh, shit. Yeah, so I had 8 days left to get this shit figured out and completed. So with fire on my heels, I got to work. About 4 days in, I realized that I wasn't going to get it done within the limits I had imposed on myself. So something had to give, and the game script got about 4,000 words lighter. After cutting a good bit of the script, I was able to finish a playable version of the game that played from beginning to end by the time I had 3 days left. Originally, the flashback dream sequences in the game were meant to be in what RenPy calls novel mode, the visual novel thing where they have the text fill up the whole screen like a book, but I couldn't figure that out in time, so I just threw my hands up and said fuck it and gave up on that plan. I also wanted to use the Ren'Py lighting tool designed by Stella at Make Visual Novels, but I couldn't make it work in a way I found appealing and didn't cause issues, so naturally it had to go too. Now, to be fair, this was definitely user error. At this point in the jam, I was so stressed I couldn't sleep for more than like 4 hours at a time, so I was running on fumes. I'm sure if I came back to it now, I could get it working in like 30 minutes, but in that moment, that shit was not getting done, and I just had to accept that. Along with a couple of weird font glitches that made me want to die and typos that I totally missed, I think the real thing missing from the project was polish. I was unfortunately way too focused on getting the thing done and didn't have the time to, actually go back and deal with emergencies or issues. This is the result of the fact that I insanely decided that my first ever visual novel was going to be made under the most stressful circumstances it could have possibly been made under. So I can't really act surprised when I didn't have the time to polish it. In hindsight, I really should have afforded myself more time for programming and restructuring the project early on, but hey, that's how these things go. I also want to shout out the Game Jams Discord real quick while I have the chance, since honestly, seeing other people work on their stuff was a big part of what kept me motivated enough to actually finish my project. Everyone there was also struggling, and while I mostly did lurk because I'm shy, seeing the genuine passion and hard work from all the developers there was a huge inspiration. Also, seeing reminders to drink water and rest were another big help. If you're watching this right now, drink water. After many a sleepless night, Judgment Day had arrived. With 5 hours left on the deadline, I published my game. I cannot express how much I felt the tension leave my body the moment the upload was done. I was set free, and finally I could just fucking relax. And so I did. I immediately went out, got myself a Culver's basket meal, and watched WWE Evolution. Looking back, I should have made a project about toxic wrestler Yuri, but, too late. Over the next few weeks, the results of my labor came in, which is to say, people started playing the game, and they told me, hey, yeah, that was pretty good. Which, thank God. Honestly, whenever I work on something, I really easily convince myself that everything I made was shit, so it's nice to hear how things look to somebody who isn't incestuously familiar with the work inside and out. Now, while I wish I could say that this time was just hunky-dory and all the developers got to enjoy being done with their projects, that unfortunately wouldn't be true. Pretty soon after the completion of the jam, itch.io purged their site of all adult content, citing an ongoing issue with Visa payment processors. I'm far from the first person to cover this. I'm sure you saw plenty about it at the time, and even now. This is still an ongoing issue. As payment processors continue to be pressured by right-wing conservative think tanks to remove the ability for you, a full-grown adult, to purchase perfectly legal pornography, I'm not going to disguise how I feel about this. Puritanical stances like this are inherently anti-queer, misogynistic, and anti-sex work, and actively make our society worse by aiming to censor already marginalized voices. Watching other developers in the game jam get their games taken down, having their hard work and queer self-expression torn down because it was deemed too sexual for consenting adults to see, was heartbreaking. These conservative groups don't care about the greater good. They want complete obliteration of what they consider undesirables from public life. And it's fucking disgusting, and it's reprehensible. And no matter what they say, they will never tear us down. Soon after itch reversed its policy, tens of thousands of calls were made to Visa, and many creators for the jam managed to open their own websites and share their games through torrenting and other means. No matter how hard these conservative low-life bottom feeders try to bring us down, we will always find a way to be a part of the world, and our voices will always be heard. If anything I said here makes you want to take action, I'll leave resources in the description for how you can fight for your right as a adult to pay for adult content and to keep bullshit payment processors out of our work. Now, on a much lighter note, soon after I posted my game, I got a notification that obliterated me. Nadia Nova had commented on my game, and not only that, she liked it. I could never express how much seeing this meant to me with how insane I went towards the end of the project. I may have cried a little. Only a little, though. But like, could you blame me? I couldn't believe someone I looked up to, my first bookmark, told me I did good. Insane shit. Nadia Nova posted about my game again on Blue Sky, and I exploded again, but other than that, it was pretty smooth sailing from then on. Then the date was announced, a live stream announcing the winners. It was time to see if I had made a game good enough to win 500 smackers. Now, if you weren't there for the stream or seen its VOD, I highly recommend you go check it out. It was a ton of fun. But I just want to share one moment from it. As they began announcing the winners for the project, they started talking about an entry that made my heart stop. A game about lying? A game about a relationship between a cis girl and a trans girl? Is this about me? Did I win? How was I gonna handle the new fame this would bring me?
No, I can't laugh yet. I've got to hold it in.
Surely this would be the greatest moment of my entire life, the beginning of my game development journey, a legendary... The winner was Ride Home by Tabby Dearest. Yeah, I may have gotten embarrassingly excited for a second, but can you blame me? They sounded similar when you frame it like that. So, yeah, I didn't win. Well, I didn't win $500, but I definitely feel like I won in every other way that matters. I mean, I got 500 downloads on my first game project, a creator I look up to praised me, and hey, if this video gets enough views, I'll make $500 a different way. But seriously, I can't state how overjoyed I am by how much I got out of doing this. I'm still incredibly proud of what I was able to achieve with this project, despite the 9 different ways I shot myself in the foot. As a final wrap up, here's my advice from everything I experienced during this. Number 1, always prepare before the project. Learn the engine and get comfortable with the tools before you waste a shit ton of time learning them while you're actively in the process of using them. It's going to save you more time than you could imagine. Number 2, don't overwork yourself. My overwork was not a symptom of some greater genius like I'm Picasso sitting painting the Mona Lisa. It was a result of poor planning. Looking back, I was far too stressed and spending way too much time on this. And that's something hopefully I'll be able to bring into my future work. Number 3, polish is the hardest part, so give yourself extra time to make sure your work is as good as it possibly can be. And this applies to everything. Always assume it's going to take as long as possible to have the project be finished from beginning to start, but also make sure you have extra time for polish. That's what's going to be the real difference maker. Number 4, make cuts. A finished game that's missing parts is much better than a non-existent perfect complete game, because one is objectively playable and the other one isn't. And lastly, number 5, and this is a more nebulous one. The theme was Toxic Yuri, but I went really subtle on the toxic, like a light seasoning. A pepper sprinkle of tiny bits of toxic here and there. Looking back, that was probably the wrong decision. I really should have swung way harder for the fences here. Looking at my game in comparison to what everybody else turned in, it's hard to say that mine counts as toxic. It's like, at most, lightly venomous. And lastly, and most importantly, just make stuff. I'm serious. Look how much I was able to get done in a month with an engine I've never used before and a awful, terrible plan. Imagine what you could do. You can go make video games. You can start literally right now. So go, make a game. Nothing is stopping you. There's tons of cool game jams currently going, so go get involved. Go do it for fun. Who cares if you win? There's a million other ways to find joy in your work. I think often I got in my head about how hard it is to make a video game, but sitting down and actually making one made me realize that it was much easier than I was giving myself credit for. So, on one hand, it was a miracle it got done, but on the other, I made a miracle happen. I feel like in the bullshit capitalist society where we're all raised in, it's easy to get hung up on the idea of trying to min-max the hours put into dollars coming out made by any activity, but there's so much fun to be found in just making art for its own sake, especially queer art that reflects your own unique, messy, weird experiences. I know this for sure has inspired me to make more games. I'm currently working on what I'll call submarine visual novel project and card game project, so if either of those sound interesting, please stick around and maybe you'll see them when it's time for me to actually release those. Maybe. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Wow, a Zeta video that's under 25 minutes. Can you believe it? Insane. First off, I'd like to thank everybody who hosted the Game Jam. It was super, super fun to participate in. I thought it was fantastic. I want to shout out all the other developers who were working on stuff. All the games that have come out of this giant Game Jam were a lot of fun. And lastly, I'd like to shout out my patrons who are on screen. They allow me to do YouTube stuff. And hey, if you'd like to support me, it would sure mean a lot. Pretty soon, I'm going to be putting up a website along with 3D commissions, so if you want to support me in some other ways, you'll have some options coming up as well. Otherwise, yeah, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and new video soon-ish? Anyway, love y'all. Bye.